first of our Cosmos and community calls is the subject of the eclipses that are coming up this month. We have a solar eclipse at the 21st degree of Libra on the 14th of October, and a lunar eclipse at the 5th degree of Taurus on the 28th of October. I'm going to be looking at these charts in later on in the call. But one of the things that is so important for us to understand when it comes to all of the astrological transits that we are ever talking about, and by transit I mean the things that move. There's one way of understanding the placements of our sun, our moon, our Venus, Mars, Mercury, these placements in our natal chart, for example. But a transit is what we think of when there's stuff happening in the sky, and it's more like understanding the weather than understanding just the map, if that makes sense. And so I want to, when we're thinking about all of the transits that ever happen, whether it's something as simple as a new moon, or something as dense as a solar eclipse conjunct, Mars or something, there's some of them can be quite dense and quite impactful. We always have choice as to how we approach them. We can always choose how we move towards a certain juncture. We may not, and we often cannot, choose the energy that's coming, but we can choose how we approach it. And eclipses and eclipse season is often talked about in as if it is something to fear, something that is very intense, something that is going to bring about circumstances that are out of our control. The intensity, I think, is as you take it and as you make it, depending on what kind of meditation practices or lifestyles you lead, and also depending on our own personal circumstances in that moment. It might be that we're able to regulate our nervous system. It may be that we're able to be in a place that is very safe and comfortable, and it may be that those are absolutely not our lives and our circumstances. And so the level of the intensity of the eclipse is something that we can mitigate, we can choose to mitigate, but it does bring intensity. The eclipses do bring intensity, and they are known historically for bringing intensity. So the eclipse transits are the things that, if you imagine in times when people didn't have a strong sense of what was going on in the cosmos, what was going on beyond the planet, and then with the solar eclipse, you saw the moon being completely covered over by the sun, this great light in the sky being completely obscured, or partially. This one that we have coming up on the 14th is a partial solar eclipse and partially obscured. What could that have meant? What would that have meant? It brings this quite primal, quite instinctive fear that comes with mystery and power that we are powerless to affect. I can't put my hand over and say, don't do that. I can't change the thing. And it's just happening. We can only really behold it. And with the lunar eclipse, it's the shadow of the moon that is like acts upon the sun. Hang on, have I got that right? Yes, the shadow of the sun on the moon, the shadow of the sun on the moon. So part of the moon will kind of appear orangey red. And again, like this bright white orb that shifts shapes throughout the month suddenly is drenched in a redness. You can see again that we have evolved as animals, as beings on this planet, with this dance between the sun and the moon occurring from before we had even become humanoid, before we were what do they call us, we're homo sapiens, before we were any kind of homo anything. And so there's this sense of like, what is that? And that it's why there is this legacy of fear that gets picked up and kind of made a lot of when we're approaching a eclipse season. But we do always have the option of how we want to approach it. And sometimes it's not even necessarily about being brave. It's not that the thing that is coming is inherently terrifying and that we have to be brave and courageous. It can be that a more strategic approach to an eclipse season is to be peaceful. It could be that a more strategic approach to an eclipse season is to be creative. It rather than, oh, something bad's going to happen, I'm scared and I need to be scared, or I need to be brave because a scary thing is going to happen. Instead, it's like, oh, okay, so there's some changes coming, and how do I approach these changes? It may be that we need to be very active, it may be that we need to be assertive, it may be that we need to be brave. But my sense is that, especially with these eclipses that are coming up, that there are other strategies that we can apply to the changes that are coming, because big change is coming, and that is something that I want to kind of mark up now, and we'll do some journaling around that in a moment, where there is big change coming, where that's really what eclipses are. It's big new beginnings coming about through big new endings, big new beginnings and big new endings. And just as we have the full moon and the new moon to work with, just as we have the solar transits as they move through the different signs, we have the equinoxes and solstices, all of these are moments of change. And the piece that makes the eclipses particularly powerful and potent and impactful is that it allows us, or it allows the things that we don't often liberate to set us free, because they are the things that are repressed or hidden in the shadows.